Welcome back to another YouTube Tuesday. My name is Derek, and today we're going to be taking a look at a new channel that I've recently come across called Director Fang. He's only been posting videos for about a year. He's put up about 50, I think, 45. So recently he made a video on an iPhone 17 Pro Max where he upgrades the memory. I thought this would be an interesting one to take a look at, so let's get into the video. Alright, this is the ASMR version for the iPhone 17 Pro Max. We'll probably skip a bunch of this just because it's unboxing and teardown, but I will say it is a beautiful looking phone. And that's exactly what I like to do, put on a screen protector right away. I think some of the subtitles are translated in an interesting way. I'm assuming that's Chinese. Alright, looks like it's a 256 gigabyte capacity phone. He's going to try to go up to 2 terabytes, excuse me. Alright, he's taking out the pentalobe screws, of course. There's so many different types of these jigs, and they're getting extremely useful. Isopropyl alcohol will also work to loosen up the adhesive. And he's doing the right thing, letting the tension do the work and not forcing it beyond its capacity. You can see that liquid really do its job. These little suction cups are convenient to hold the screen so it doesn't just flop out and potentially damage one of the cables coming off the screen. And this is something that for some techs is just overkill, but I highly recommend covering up these components so that dust doesn't affect them or they don't get fingerprints on them. I do appreciate having one bracket for both of the flexes on the display, for both the proximity sensor and the actual display flex. That is a nice change. And Apple did change the technology of the flex, basically making it wider for the new cooling system, the vapor chamber system. And of course, the new screws, more like a MacBook screw, the T5. And I do really like this new battery concept, it being kind of removable in that way. And it has the quick release technology, which is really cool. I've seen some people try to do it the wrong way by basically connecting both of them. You need to connect to ground instead of connecting to one side to the other. It's not going to work that way. And this phone, it does look more like a Samsung. The internals, I've heard that critique, and it definitely looks like that. You can see the big chip there to the left. That is the NAND, the memory chip that we're going to watch be changed. To remove the whole Face ID unit and more of those Torx screws for the rear camera assembly. Big camera assembly. And this is just another one of those small details where it really makes a difference to cover up those camera slots so that you don't get dust in there. And looks like we can get the board out after a bunch of other things. And there's a couple flex cables that are soldered directly to the board, which is definitely interesting. Reminds me kind of some of the Apple Watches, which means those cables are going to get damaged because people are going to take out these motherboards without disconnecting stuff. And like this cable, for example, even though it's not, it's going to get torn, I'm sure. Like that's going to the wireless charging unit. But these flex cables that you can see coming off are definitely going to get damaged. So learning how to solder those on is, I think, going to be very important to know. Looks like it's just like the 5G antenna where it's a blind solder, which is going to be unfortunate. Adding a drop of isopropyl alcohol helps these stickers come off a little bit easier. If you don't remove all of these, then they will definitely shrink when you go to heat it. And it looks like we're using a CNC method to remove the NAND. I personally would have just removed it with heat. The chip is still good. It's a 256 gig chip, and these chips do go bad. So having that to be able to replace the memory on a phone, if that's the reason it went bad, and then flashing it, might have saved you $50 or something to actually just desolder it and save it. But this is one method, of course, to get it off without having to add that extra amount of heat, because obviously overheating a board like this can cause issues with the CPU and completely kill the phone. But also a CNC can also kill a phone if it's not done properly. If you don't have everything set up right, you might dig into the motherboard. Looks like they've done a few passes that they didn't show on camera, and they're down to basically removing the remainder of the NAND there. There's probably still going to be some pieces floating that they'll need to remove. And of course the border of it, which is just really held on with underfill. Adding some flux, taking a soldering iron with some low melt solder. Of course, this will help mix with the factory solder, making it so that you can much easier, making it so that you can wick it in a much easier fashion. Adding some hot air can help. In this instance, you just really need to control the temperature so you're not overheating the board. It'll help you remove any of these straggling pieces of the NAND. There we go, adding some heat with some hot air. Wicking up as much of the solder as you can. And then with the flat blade, he's going to remove all of the underfill that is still there. And if you didn't solder or change the solder to a low melt, this would become very dangerous and difficult to do without damaging the pads or even scraping the top layer of the board. There are other tools that you can use besides this type of blade. I have like this little chisel skate blade that I use, that I prefer, and he'll remove the border of that old NAND. And then you'll still need to clean up the underfill around the perimeter. That's not too hard if you're just controlling your temperature, making sure you're not getting too hot. Adding some more flux, and then finally wicking off all of the solder, factory, and the low melt that you put on there. This will also get rid of any of oxidation from using any of the heat from the hot air gun, and then cleaning it up with some PCB cleaner or isopropyl alcohol. And it looks like they found out that a 2 terabyte, that one in particular, was not compatible, so they're going to 1 terabyte now. That's fine. And I definitely recommend using your own preferred solder paste when reballing. Even if it does come pre-balled, I recommend wicking it and reballing your own, because that way you know the temperature that you're going to be using when it comes time to solder on any of these bigger chips. I personally like to use a 183 when doing an NAND. It's not too hot, but definitely not a low melt, or not something I would consider a low melt. It's something I'd consider kind of a mid-grade temperature. And I would use a liquid flux. He's using some rosin, which is totally fine. Creates a nice thin barrier of basically flux as it melts. And you want to give it a little nudge when it's soldered down, just to make sure everything snaps into position. And you want that little spring back for the NAND. And of course, you'll need to reassemble it enough to flash it, just to make sure that it works. Put it into DFU mode and flash the iOS. And if everything went well, this should work. I bet you what he tried is the 2 terabyte, and it wasn't successful, and that's how they found out. They had to remove the NAND, wick it again, reball the 1 terabyte and install it, and you can see that it successfully upgraded to 1 terabyte. And I bet you he got this little issue with the smudge during the removal and cleaning of the first NAND they tried to install. Alright, we'll skip forward a little bit where he's cleaning the adhesive. This is a tool that you've seen me use in previous videos. I love this tool for cleaning up the borders of anything, iPads, iPhones, Apple Watches. It really pulls up all of that adhesive and really cuts down the time of cleaning and prepping for new adhesive on the border. If you really like ASMR stuff, I highly recommend you watch the full video in its entirety. Installing new adhesive, getting rid of any signs of touch in there. Let me know in the comments below if you go this far. Do you clean everything to this extent and keep everything as nice as he is when you're doing these repairs? I know a lot of techs that wouldn't go this far, so. And most techs that I know wouldn't even go this far as to compress it down. But I highly recommend you do it to give the phone its best chance at having any resistance to water, to dust, to anything, really. And they're going to pressurize it, make sure it's got a good seal. Looks like it's done that. And there it is, all the way up to a whole terabyte. That's awesome. Again, this was Director Fang. Got almost 61,000 subscribers and has put up 47 videos. I'll definitely check him out. And there we go. That was quite the repair process. I'm sure that soon he'll put out a video if possible, showing an upgrade to a full 2 terabytes instead of 1. And of course, I would have done a few things a little bit differently, but overall, this was phenomenal. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if there's a channel that you'd like to recommend, let me know in the comments below. Thanks a ton for watching. We'll see you in the next video.